Welcome to Lazy Reviews. My name is Arvid, and I spend a lot of time watching movies. Unfortunately, many of them turn out to be terrible, some of them turn out to be good, and that's why I will be sharing my experiences with you so you can avoid all the stinking tarts and go straight for the gold. So I've just watched the entire Puppet Master horror franchise with all the 14 movies that are currently out at the time of this recording. And I'm just going to go through a review of all of them in this one little video. The series kicked off with the first entry, Puppet Master in 1989, with a visibly very small budget. The movie is not that entertaining. I don't understand why it would garner the cult following, or at least all the sequels that this movie apparently led to. It's not outright bad, it's just boring, and the story is a bit confusing. So, with a backstory, it starts in 1939 in America, in California, with this hotel, and there is this puppet master who designs all these puppets in the and he's hiding from the Nazis because apparently the Nazis wearing full Gestapo outfits have tracked him down to Northern America and enters the hotel to rob him of his secrets. And again, that's pretty much what we know about this guy at this point. This movie really centers around other things, so we won't get much of his backstory or much of the story really in any way in this one entry. But the puppet master shoots himself. That's how the movie starts. Then we jump, more or less to 1989, where the main protagonists were all psychics, or have these special powers in one way or another to communicate with the dead or spirits or whatever, are all working in this paranormal team, sort of, kind of, somewhat colleagues, but not really, invited to this funeral of this person, their former colleague nobody liked because he would rip them off. And the story is not really that good, and it's confusing. Yeah, apparently that guy isn't really dead, but he kinda is, but he has also mastered some esoteric thing that kinda makes him alive again, but not in his real body, but then again, he isn't really dead. Honestly, maybe the story is told better than I am throughout the movie, and in one way or another, definitely you could probably find a plot synopsis somewhere, but it's just not really good, done that well in the film. It's not really, and it doesn't really bother with the story, even though it really tries hard. All the focus is on the puppets, and I will say, especially as the series progress forward, the kills in this movie are actually not that bad because the puppets do kill. There are five neat designs of these puppets, and they all have their special trick up their sleeve, the special move on how they kill people. There's the leech lady that might be the most iconic of them because she is so odd. I mean, she what she does is she just lies leeches on people. Not really the most deadly part. The later movies, the later entries, kind of have to force her to be deadly in quite funny ways. And then there is the sergeant. I think that's his name. He has a drill on his head that he drills people with. There is the guy. I think he's called Blade. That's at least what he's referred to in many of the movies. Who kind of looks like the Grim Reaper, but if he was an edgy cowboy, and he cuts people with his tiny, tiny knife. And then there is Pinhead. And Pinhead has a large body but a very small head. And finally, we have Jester, but Jester is quite forgettable, to be honest. He has this weird thing, well, not weird, he just has this thing that he can change his expressions, but I don't really recall him doing anything. I mean, as I just said, I've just watched 14 movies in a very short period of time, so these do blend together a bit. I don't remember him doing much. Anyway, yeah, he's quite forgettable. There are some good kills, some funky BDSM stuff leading to, of course, people not ending their days in ways that are, you probably don't want to die. That's a weird phrasing. Some of the kills are fine, but actually, even then, it kind of falls flat compared to some of the later entries. Well, what I think it does do well is the atmosphere of the hotel. There is a nice atmosphere, just this single location with these halls that are kind of foggy for whatever reason, and these actors, actresses are not doing a good job, but they are playing over the top characters, these typecast characters more or less, that actually kind of make it entertaining. So it's not bad. It's just not. I would never recommend someone to watch this because it's just not good enough. It has a very mediocre quality to it and a very low budget quality to it. So yeah, in the end, yeah, that's all I will say about the first movie. You can watch it. I mean, it's iconic, but I don't understand why. It's what created a cult following that created 14 movies with a 15th one in the making. So you have 15 movies spawned from this single film. So let's go on to the next one, Puppet Master 2. So this film was made in 1990. Whether or not it has a bigger budget, I don't know. They had slightly more locations than the other one. The acting is probably even worse. It has almost no atmosphere. But what it does have that actually makes this more interesting than the previous ones and makes it one of the very few movies I can recommend from this franchise. I don't know if that's considered a spoiler, but yes, most of these movies are terrible. But yeah, it has its plot centers around them resurrecting André Toulon, who is their puppet master, the original puppet master who committed suicide. He has been buried at the California Hotel in 1939. And yeah, the puppets somehow managed to bring him back to life. A lot of these things are not really that well explained. It, Later, they will introduce more of this fluid. I think actually it's already introduced in this entry, but it will be explained even more in the other movies. So in this film, they bring him back to life, and he walks around this hotel, abandoned hotel at this point. Walks around like a mummy and has a German accent. He's supposed to be French, but he has a German accent. And some ghost hunters, some young college students show up, and they are there, and then he's there, and they kind of just mingle. And then the puppets show up, and he's commandeering the puppets to do things with a degree of restraint. So the puppet master is not exactly evil, and he's trying to teach the puppets to do the right thing and not the wrong thing. Because in this movie, the puppets start out just murdering random people. There's a new puppet in this one. I think he might be called Tunneler. He looks quite cool. He has a flamethrower. So yeah, that's the puppets now have ranged weapons, which will become a thing that goes on from here on out in the series. We'll have different types of puppets, usually the same, but some of them are unique. Some new ones will be introduced or redesigned. But yeah, this one has a flamethrower, and it's implied he burns a kid to death. And there are these rednecks that they also kill because, I don't know, reasons. And Leech Lady dies in this one. I don't know, it doesn't really have any effect for most of the other movies in the franchise, but Leech Lady is dead. She gets burned in an oven, but then the woman who burns in the oven gets burned by the flamethrower guy. So yeah, justice well served. I don't know. The puppets are still in the first movie. They were mostly evil, maybe misunderstood, but mostly evil, because there's the master that controls them. In this second entry, they are still mostly evil. The doctor tries again to tell them, please don't kill people. It's not the right thing to do. And they still kind of kill people, especially if they try to interfere with the plans, which they, of course, do because of reasons. And it turns out that this puppet master reveals himself that he's this, undead guy to these people. And then he lets them in on the secret of who these puppets are. And then, who are these puppets? How are they created? So it turns out that all these puppets were human beings that were transferred to the puppets. The master tries to turn into a puppet himself, this big puppet, but then the smaller puppets don't want that, so they kill him. And that's pretty much where the movie ends. and I'm still clueless as really why things happened. But I think it's cool. I think some of the scenes, especially towards the end, where he turns into this man puppet, that is actually quite neat. You will waste a lot of time watching this film, but you probably won't hate it. I think I can give this a low recommendation to anyone interested in the Puppet Master series, because this is probably where you should start. You can start with the first one, but this one you might want to watch because just this weird guy walking around wearing bandages, he's just fun. He's fun. He's good entertainment. I don't know. Maybe I just watch so many shitty movies and I'm so used to things not being entertaining that I find just the bare minimum of entertainment to be engaging. And in so, if so, I will apologize for not being the reviewer of fine arts of high taste and quality that I might accidentally make myself out to be, because I like schlock, but it has to be good schlock, and this is just art schlock. But I can recommend it, sure. Low recommendation. Third movie, Puppet Master 3 Toulon's Revenge, made in 1991. This film messes with the chronology. So the first two movies, yes, established timeline, good. Why mess with that? Well, the third movie wants to mess with that. Because of course it wants to. Why not? I mean, why not just screw with timelines like that? It's not like anybody cares. These are low budget movies people want to watch puppets kill people. And what better to kill than Nazis? So of course this is set in occupied France, and I've tried to figure out, I think, 1943 and 1944. Toulon is still in California. Sorry, Toulon is still in France, where he was the puppet master. And here, I think we have the biggest leap from the original two movies. The original two movies, Toulon dies in 1939 in California. Yet, in this movie, he is in France in 1943, 1944. So, yeah, okay, that's just what we had to accept. And it turns out that he helps the resistance against the Nazis, and the Nazis don't like him, but they need his research to create zombie soldiers, because a lot of soldiers have died on the East Front against the Soviets, so they need replenishments, which they will get by reanimating their dead soldiers. But the Nazis can't really figure out how to do this alone. But then they discover that Toulon has these puppets that he has a puppet show with, and he has this serum that he injects them with to make them alive. I don't know why this serum was not really needed in the first two films, at least not from what I remember from watching them. It really didn't have a playing a central role. It does in pretty much all movie from here on out, that this weird green serum reanimates life. And the Nazis, of course, want his research. So they try to persuade him. He doesn't want that. They kill his wife. Wife becomes leech lady. This is where we find out that all the puppets in his collection are not just people, they were friends of his who fought the Nazis. So they are all have a fervent hatred for Nazism. We also hear that the biggest reason why these puppets are alive and why his serum works is because the puppets want to come back to life. The soldiers they try to reanimate want to stay dead, but the puppets don't. The puppets want revenge. That's why they return to life. But this is also the first movie where the puppets are, without a doubt, the good guys. The movie also has the very lovely villain from. He plays a villain in a lot of movies from the 80s and 90s. I think his biggest role is probably Invasion USA, where he plays the bad guy. He's quite an interesting fella. I do like it when he shows up in movies. Aside from that, I don't really remember anyone having seen other people in this movie before. But yeah, his performance is, I guess it's a bit lackluster, but it's probably still the most interesting performance in this film. So the Nazis want to hunt down these people and puppets, and Toulon goes into hiding with the puppets, trying to go to France. Sorry, he tries to go abroad to Switzerland. meets a kid and his father fleeing to Switzerland as well, but there's a big bounty out on Toulon's head, so they side with the Nazis, and they shouldn't have. So things go wrong. Next thing, Nazis are dead. The mad scientist loves Toulon because he just thinks his research is pretty swell and thinks it's the future, and Nazism isn't the future, so he defects and dies. I think that's what I can say about that movie. I don't know. I think my expectations were low, and I got enough enjoyment out of it to actually give it a low recommendation, maybe? I don't know. If you like the second movie, you might like the third one. It's not like it's a masterpiece. Compared to some of the movies that will come later, this is Oscar worthy. But we're not there yet. We're not there yet with the bad movies. Because actually, Puppet Master 4 from 1993 might be the second best of the Puppet Master movies, in my opinion. It's more low key. It changes things a lot in the universe. So we are now following four scientists who are researching this occult matter of reanimating life, and they are all smoking hot, even though they are nerd scientists who are the biggest nerd scientists in the world, as the movie portrays them. And they are started being killed off by these demons, because one thing that we had established, I think it's in Puppet Master 2, this is established, that the magic to creating live puppets comes from this old Egyptian god that gives on secrets to living multiple lives and create life. I don't know. It's just an excuse to expand on the universe and have reasons where it would actually be okay if there were no reasons why these puppets are alive. But magic. So these gods or demons or entities do not want humans to learn the secrets of reanimation. And I will say that the design of these things and their lair is low budget fantastic. It's so good when you see it. It's just, you don't expect it having watched the three first movies. So I was already really hooked at the beginning here. So what this movie gives us is that these four people, one of them, our main protagonist, he now lives in this house. Actually, they don't know about the colleagues being killed off because it all happens more or less overnight by these demons. And how they do it is that they send them a demon puppy. Sorry, a demon puppet that looks also quite cool. That starts killing them one by one in their laboratories. But honestly, I think this is also the weakest part of the movie, that almost all the kills are very forgettable because most of them are shown from the perspective of the puppet. And it's just, first person camera running around, scratching people, just really boring stuff. Nothing about this movie or the next movie have they don't really have any interesting kills. They just have some entertainment value that is okay. Um, because they do change things up, and the acting is probably the best so far, but also they are again playing very one sided, one personal characters, very simple people, but it works. And so they all work with artificial intelligence, and our lead is just this. It has a lot to do with science versus playing. So the lead has this idea that the reason why he's a good scientist is because he has fun. He plays with science, and that's what makes him a good scientist. Because there's this douchebag who really wants access to his to his research, and is really not happy that anyone is more successful than he is. So there's all this rivalry, and then this woman, there's one of the girls there who apparently knows about these puppets. I actually don't remember if we understand why, but she knows about these puppets and she warns them about letting them out. But it turns out that they let all the puppets out, and I think they inject them from what I remember, and they come to life, and they are friendly, and they treat these puppets as friends, and in return they treat the humans as friends and guard them because, of course, this demon thing shows up to kill all these people in their lovely little abandoned hotel, and the puppets and the humans team together to kill these puppets. And I don't know, it's quite neat. It's just a different movie, and I don't know, not much more to say about it. I can definitely recommend it. I think, I don't know if it's a good movie, but it's a good Puppet Master movie. And with that, let's move to the fifth installment, Puppet Master 5, the final chapter. Of course, it's never the final chapter now, is it? And that's from 1994. This one is a direct sequel to Puppet Master 4. Our protagonist from the first movie is accused by the police of having something to do with the death of one of the douchebag in the fourth installment, and wounding the one of the women in that one as well. The kill count is not high in that film, but one does die and one gets wounded. So he has to convince the police that the puppet story is true, and the police, of course, don't trust him. But then they all set out to investigate what's going on at the hotel. First, the police send some. So is it the police? No, it's the lawyer. I think it's the lawyer. The lawyer sends some policemen or some personal assistant. It doesn't matter. It really, really doesn't matter. So I think a group of four people go to investigate the abandoned hotel, but then also our protagonist escapes from jail. And he also goes to track down the puppets first, but the demons from the are still after them. They still want them dead. So we have the good puppets running around that abandoned hotel, and we have the bad puppets, the bad demon puppets running around. And we have some fairly entertaining scenes between the puppets and the good puppets and the people who come to hunt them down. And but again, the kills are mostly. I think there was one flamethrower kill that was really cool, but aside from that, all the kills are really bad. And of course, the main douchebag lawyer, police investigator, whatever he is, tries to take some of the puppets with him instead of leaving them be, because that's what our protagonists say. Oh, let the puppets be at this hotel. It's their home. Let's not interfere with their lives. If we do that, we will be in trouble. The demons will hunt us forever. We should not be in contact with these puppets because they only bring death to the people who do it. And of course, that douchebag policeman, investigator, lawyer doesn't listen to him, so hides one of the puppets in his coat, is discovered, and is killed while our protagonists flee. And that's the final chapter. Not, I think this actually might be the weakest of the five first movies. But wow, this is good compared to the rest of the shit we will get, because this really takes a deep dive. I actually had to pause here in the recording because I'd forgotten what the sixth installment of the movie was about, and that it even existed. So, Curse of the Puppet Master from 1998 takes place in, I don't know, Hicksville, Hicks State, I don't know, somewhere just with rednecks, basically. And there's not much to say about it. It really is just really, really, really boring, and has some terrible acting, and is incredibly ugly. So this lead, not the brightest kid. At least he doesn't look like the brightest kid. You know, he has the special eds class haircut and overalls. He looks for a job. He comes to this farm in the middle of nowhere where he works as, I think, a mechanic, or yeah, he does things around the farm, fixes things. He's smaller than he looks, apparently. And this farm is run by this old man who is this pseudo scientist who works with trying to bring things back to life. He has this collection of all the puppets, and he shows them. They're not really shown to be alive at this point, but he has all the puppets, including Leech Lady. Again, continuity is not a thing in this franchise, so he has Leech Lady in his collection. I forgot to mention that in the third installment in Toulon's Revenge, we were introduced to a new, very central puppet, the gunslinger. He has six arms, all with revolvers that, despite it being tiny, shoot calibers strong enough to kill people. Actually, to make very, they might be dumb bullets because Jesus Christ, those make deep holes compared to the actual size of the gun. But yeah, he's introduced and he's also in this collection. So that's just a lot of, they don't really sync up. They just think, I think that the people who made this just, oh, well, let's just throw in the puppets we can throw in. So we have all the puppets in it, and soon after arriving at this farm, we realize something is wrong because the local police force, who are complete assholes, harass this farm owner because they think he has been involved with the disappearance of his former employee, the last person employed at the farm, who just vanished out of thin air. And of course, he denies all that, but as we will learn, he definitely had something to do with it because he has this serum and he has this occult magic, and he tries to cut these wood figurines, make these puppets himself so he can bring them back to life. He says there's all this magic to it. He has, of course, read it in all these books he found because apparently knowledge about these creatures is more widespread than we would believe in the other movies. So he knows that these should be cut in a very distinct way, and that's why he couldn't do it before. So obviously, he's been involved with a lot of deaths with all the different puppets he tried to bring back to life. All of them has been at least meant the death of one person he hired. I don't know why we only hear about one person he tried this on, because it is implied that he has done this many times. Anyway, our protagonist is a very good woodcutter, so he gets the interest of this guy, and he makes a doll. And once he makes the doll, the evil guy tries to kill him, and kill him in a very specific way, so his body will go into the puppet. Anyway, it's all the effects of this movie are outright awful. There is the only kill that gets close to being just somewhat interesting. No, actually, the old guy is also killed in a decent way by the puppets. But I think where this movie really fails compared to the previous movies when it comes to the kills, it really hides them. It doesn't want to show any violence. It just shows blood. So, for example, there's one. Of course, there are the town bullies who more or less try to rape the protagonist's love interest, who's the daughter of the farmer. So the farm owner sends these puppets away to kill them, and one is killed by having the sergeant, the guy with the drill, just drill his groin into smithereens. But you don't see much, and honestly, I think that's okay. I'm not sure I wanted to see ballsack turned into mincemeat. It's out there in other movies. It doesn't have to be in Puppet Master. But yeah, yeah, it ends up, of course, them escaping and the Puppet Master dying. A shit movie. This one is outright terrible. Don't even waste any breath saying the title. Speaking of not wasting breath on titles, Retro Puppet Master. It's the seventh entry. I think the only reason why people might have heard of this movie is because Greg Sestero from The Room plays the lead in this film. And he's supposed to be the young Toulon, I think, in very early 20th century Paris, where he starts out his puppet master career. That means this movie will have you see Greg Sestero put on an absolutely terrible French accent. And not just him, everybody in this movie have terrible accents. It's insane. There's even one who his accent sounds more Scandinavian, more Danish than it sounds French. It's just ridiculous. But what's even more ridiculous is this movie really ramps up the whole backstory with Egyptian gods and everything, because so far the main plot was that in around the time of the Second World War, Toulon was in Egypt, or at least some Middle Eastern country, where he learned the craft of making live dolls, not real dolls, fortunately, but live dolls from some shaman, whatever, magician. However, messing with the chronology, this movie has too long save an old man from three bullies who are all clad in this horrible pseudo Matrix looking. I don't know. It came out the same year of the Matrix. I'm not sure why, but they kind of all look clad with these long leather coats and ugly hats and terrible sunglasses. Maybe it was just the aesthetics of the time, but you don't really have any puppet action in this film until the very end, and it's just oh my, it's bad. It's so ugly and it's bad, and the accent's awful, and this guy he says turns out to be a reincarnation of this 1,000-year-old magician god, whatever, that this other god are is out for because he stole their secret or something, and then he teaches it on to Greg Sestero, who in turn learns how to create the dolls, the puppets, and he makes very bare bone wood carvings of them that you are the first incarnation of the puppets. And the way they come to life is because these weird Gestapo demons, whatever, come in and kill all his friends. So there you go. All the friends turn into puppets because the souls are transferred. Anyway, it's terrible. It's absolutely terrible. It's awful. It's the funny thing is you might not know this when you watch it. It's shot in Romania, so almost all the characters, if they're not, a few of them are English, but almost all of them are Romanian. So we have Romanians speaking English with a French accent, and that just is hilarious to me. That's some next level shit. And what's not next level shit is the eighth installment, Puppet Master: The Legacy from 2003. And this one is a scam. This one presents itself as a movie, but you know what it is? It's a compilation. It's all the other movies, just the best clips from those movies put together. So I'm not even gonna waste any more time on this. Do not watch this. This is terrible. And when we are already talking about terrible, let's talk about what is it? The ninth installment? Ninth installment, Puppet Master versus Demonic Toys. Demonic Toys is this other series that became popular around the same time of Puppet Master with these demonic toys. I haven't seen those movies yet, so apparently it's this toy company where the father wanted to make his daughter happy, so he made a deal with the devil of making the toys come alive, and now the toys eat people. I think the main problem with this movie is that the puppets are not good in this one. The demonic toys are more interesting than the puppets, which is not a bad thing. But what is a bad thing is the acting. This is the first movie in the series, and probably also the only one, that tries to be so bad it's good. It tries to be ironic, it tries to be a parody. So the acting is horrendous. And I think a good example is you follow the father. The father is a descendant of the Toulon family line, and his daughter is, of course, too. And it's only their pure Toulon blood that can make these puppets alive. So they have this puppet shop where they create puppets. Not really that you see new puppets in this film because you don't. It's all the original puppets. Actually don't think they are the original ones. They are probably remade for this one. Especially Leech Lady goes through a lot of incarnations throughout the franchise, while Blade stays more or less the same, and Sergeant as well. Anyway, so what I was going to say is, so this father and daughter are actually the same age. I didn't look up the actress. I didn't care enough. But the father has this horrible wig on, and that's gray. So of course it looks old because he has gray hair and this mad scientist hair. He just plays a cartoon character, and so does the woman. And I mean, the movie has some okay, funny ideas. They've probably been ripped off the previous Demonic Toys movies. This one was shot in Bulgaria, so again, everybody is Bulgarian, but speaking with mostly an English, American English accent, but also not. So the accents are all over the place. Um, I don't know, not much to say. This one was just a disappointment. The kills are not good. The The puppet action, toy action is not good. The acting is frustratingly terrible. I really don't like this. Her. Let's act bad. I don't know. It doesn't work for me. So this one definitely not recommendation. But it's so much better. So much better than the next three installments. And I'm not gonna even talk about these ones individually because they're so fucking terrible. Oh my god, these hurt my mind. This is the Axis trilogy. It's Puppet Master Axis of Evil, Puppet Master X Axis Rising, and Puppet Master Axis Termination, released in 2010, 2012, and 2017, respectively. Also, I think by the fact it's called Puppet Master X, it must mean that it doesn't recognize one of the other movies in the franchise, because it's actually the 11th movie installment. So I guess it ignores the fact that that Legacy was a movie. I don't know. These movies are some of the worst movies I've seen, and the acting is terrible. It's really I can't even explain how bad it. I mean, the other movies have bad acting, but this one has. It's not just bad; it's also stiff, and it has. It's so ugly at this point. Low budget movies often look sterile for whatever reason, and this movie is the same. It looks very sterile. But where it really bothers me is the chronology, because it's actually a direct sequel to the first Puppet Master movie, in that it takes place in 1939. And here, I'm sorry for just a tiny history lesson here, but this really bothered me. So it takes place in 1939. It starts in 1939. We never see another year in the first two movies. So for all I know, it's 1939. Yet the United States is at war with Japan and Germany and has American troops deployed in France. All this happens in exposition dialogue, of course. That means this cannot be before 1944. And even if you might say, but wait, maybe just 2 years passed between the scene that takes place in 1939 and then in 1941? No, because in 1939, where this young guy who worked in the basement, who's a carpenter of the hotel, he comes across the murder of Toulon and gets the puppets. And the night Toulon is died, we hear that there's a lot of commotion at the hotel, and we are told it's because the soldiers are leaving. So they're sent out to the front. So we know the war is on. This is 1939. America was not in the war in 1939. So unless it's some weird occupation force for the Philippines or whatever, and of course it isn't, because this is not what is implied in the movie. It just doesn't know history at all. So yeah, this doesn't make sense. And from what I remember, Gunslinger is in it again. Gunslinger is not a character. It's a character that should be in it because he was introduced in the third one. But this one is a direct sequel to the first one, so we should only have the puppets that are in the first one. Never mind. This just it breaks everything that has made this series. It just breaks it apart. And you have these Nazis that operate in America. They have a base in America in 1939. They walk around the streets in SS uniforms, in SS Totenkopf uniforms. They have these Nazi-looking cars driving around. And it's not just America. They're driving around Chinatown because they're allied with the Japanese, Axis of Evil. So the Germans and the Japanese are working together to get these puppets so that the puppets can help them reanimate the people, so that they can use the people as zombie soldiers. But also there's magic in it, and they also try to use magic to reanimate them, to make the people alive again. And then you have different kinds of magic that some are, and all the ones who know magic seem to be reincarnated of different gods. And also our hero, I don't know, the Nazis come after them because our hero wants to stop them, and they're not really even sure about the puppets at that point. So the Nazis are operating in America, in Los Angeles, wearing Nazi uniforms, and nobody notices. It it blows my mind how bad this is, how bad the writing is for this movie, for these three movies. And not just the costumes. There's a big breasted woman in this one, and you see her supposedly wearing like this Ilsa, a she wolf costume, but they got the swastika armband wrong, and the hat she is wearing is either a Soviet hat or one done with in a similar style with a similar emblem. Why? Why are the Nazis wearing post-war Soviet hats? And this is in the first one, and it gets even worse in the second one, where the Nazis show up with Kalashnikov assault rifles. I'm not sure if they're only in one scene and it's dark, so I'm not sure if it's the AK-47 or even one of the later ones. But this just no, don't do that. It's just bad. It's and even the kills. I think of the only one of these three movies I can just low key recommend is Axis Rising, because at least that one has new puppets, because the Nazis designed puppets to fight the good puppets. So you have the new puppets like Blitzkrieg, that is kind of this tank, and you have Kamikaze, which is with this very racist stereotyped Japanese guy that's just supposed to blow himself up. You have Bombshell, I think her name is called, which is this before mentioned woman who apparently really wants to fuck this old doctor. So the officer takes revenge by killing her and turning her into a puppet. But instead of just having her revenge on the guy who killed her, she cooperates with them because apparently puppets no longer have free will, or they actually do later. So I don't know why. But she has machine guns in her breasts. I don't know. That has been seen before, but at least there are new puppets in the ones. There's a werewolf. It's really not in the movies a lot, but there's a werewolf that's also okay. All in all, the new puppets are actually cool. I might just recommend you seeing those. Everything else about these 3D movies stink. Definitely some of the worst movies I've ever seen, and the acting gets worse and worse and worse, and it's just mind-boggling how bad they are. It's terrible. It's absolutely terrible. So, when I heard about the next film, Puppet Master, the Littlest, Reich, that's actually the movie that maybe kind of want to go back and watch the Puppet Master movies, because I had never watched them. And it always just been a slight interest of mine, so maybe watch them. So I heard that movie came out. Maybe I should watch them. Of course, 4 years passed before I did. And the reason why is because Craig Sala was involved. The guy who made Bone Tomahawk, Dragged Across Concrete, and Brawl in Cell Block 99. So I thought this has to be good. And I was right. This movie is great. This is definitely the best movie in the Puppet Master franchise. It is kind of a remake, because it is a remake. They really changed up the entire story. Suddenly, Toulon was a Nazi and not, someone fighting the Nazis, which really changes things. He creates all the puppets to exterminate undesirables. People who are whom the Nazis don't like, homosexuals, non-white people. Jews, of course. That's what all these puppets were made for. Toulon is now played by Udo Kier. Udo Kier. What is his name? Udo Kier. And he's honestly great in this one. He doesn't have many scenes, but he looks amazing. He plays it fine. Not much to say about his performance, really. It's nice to see him. I always like seeing him in movies. So that was already a good start. The movie, the story is a complete mess. But this movie doesn't care about the story. The story really plays little role. I will say this: it actually probably has the most character building of any of the movies. Our protagonist and his friend are our protagonist recently divorced. Him and his friend are working in this comic shop, and our protagonist is also used to make comics. And I don't know, there's a lot of good jokes in this one. A lot of things are really appreciated. And what this movie excels in is that the hotel, it's a new location, but the hotel turns into a slaughterhouse, a complete slaughter fest. And it's because so The puppet master was killed by the police quite late. I don't know. It doesn't say, but not that many years before the movie takes place. And I don't know, he had this weird plan that we don't know until the end of the movie. Actually, we have no idea how the story is terribly told. You have no idea why things happen. But suddenly all the puppets come alive because there's this convention, this big auction where they can sell all the puppets. At least that's what they're told at this murder house. So they all bring their puppets. A lot of people bring their puppets, and all the puppets come alive, and all the puppets kill, and they kill, 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 and the kills are great. They are fun. They're entertaining. They are violent and gratuitous without dwelling too much on it. It's just very well made, and I think also surprisingly for a movie with so many entries, it probably has the first hits we see in. Maybe there have been naked breasts in one of the other ones. I'm not sure. I don't remember there being naked breasts, but this one you definitely see naked breasts. And in a horror movie franchise starting in the late 90s, spanning 15 movies, it's 14 movies at this point. It's insane, actually, that it's only the 13th installment that we see breasts. So I don't know. This movie, I guess this movie has everything. It also has a penis for the ladies. I don't think that penis is something you want to see. But yeah, still, or for the gay men, whatever. For everyone, this movie has something for everyone. It has good comedy. It has good kills. It has a lot of gags. It has a lot of not cliches, tropes, cliches turned upside down a bit. It's just fun. It's fun, and people have fun making it. People have fun watching it. It's really just yeah. This one I can definitely give a recommendation. There's so many good puppet designs in it. They just went all aboard with doing all these crazy things with the puppets, being creative, also because of the technology it allowed having some of the puppets being made later than in the first movies. Yeah, just it's overall just good. It's not amazing. I think again the story really lets it down, but I enjoyed it. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Um, but because it's actually the first movie in the franchise that doesn't recognize any of the previous films, you can't say you have watched the Puppet Master movie if this is the only one you have watched, even if it's the best one. And I wish I could end on this high note. I wish I could end this bulk review happy. But no. They had to make Blade. Blade, the Iron Cross, came out in 2020. And we are again fighting Nazis. They're so integrated into the story that why not fight the Nazis? It doesn't work at all because it's again taking place in America in the late war. We don't know the exact year. So it's probably 1944, maybe even early 45. And it's what I will say about this is it's actually quite beautiful. It looks decent, it looks mediocre, which is more than I can say a lot about a lot of these movies. But the acting is probably not the worst of the franchise, but it's so bad that I know I've said that a lot, but it's because all these movies have bad acting. And yeah, it's just frustratingly bad. And it focuses on Blade because for whatever reason, Blade is supposed to be like special. That's what they say. The Blade is the special one. Blade is the one that looks like this Gestapo cowboy skeleton. And actually, we learned in the second installment, or the third installment, or the fourth installment, Blade is actually Toulon when he's reincarnated, from what I remember. I'm quite sure Blade is Toulon. I think that's the fourth installment that teaches us that. So yeah, that means in the story Toulon has died. It doesn't really explain which chronology it follows because, Toulon has not made it to America yet, according to some of the films. So yeah, the entire franchise is just confusing to watch. So what does this movie have? This movie has actually some decent kills. That's what I can say for it. Oh, sorry. I again remembered how bad the Axis trilogy is Sorry, it's really bad. Nothing in this really gets worse than the XIII trilogy. I just have to remind myself that nothing gets worse than the XIII trilogy. That being said, Blade is really bad. The story is terrible. It's even worse and more over the place than the rest of the films. It's now outright a zombie film because now the Nazis have learned how to use different methods and magic and Toulon's chemistry, whatever, to reanimate corpses, but they cannot make them into good soldiers. They can only make them into zombies that are mindless and eat brains. So yeah, it's a zombie film now. It always borrowed this zombie territory with the whole reanimation thing, but yeah, this is outright a zombie film. And I could go away from this thinking that it might have been better than some of the first movies, like some of the first 8 movies, but then the ending had to spoil it. The ending is so bad, so confusing, so terribly shot, so all over the place, so poorly explained, and does something absolutely unforgivable. And yeah, I already spoiled the rest of the movie, so I'll explain it. Blade gets destroyed. The toy gets destroyed. We already know from the other movies that the toys can get destroyed, the puppets can get destroyed, and they won't come back. So yeah, it's a possibility. So Blade gets smashed with a sledgehammer by the main Nazi, Doctor Evil guy, Nazi person. And when he's smashed into dust and there's nothing left of him, suddenly the evil guy gets penetrated from within and gets cut open, and out emerges Blade. I don't know what that means. So that means the puppets no longer even have to have a physical body made for them, but now they're completely supernatural beings. The ending was so frustratingly bad and took such a huge dump on the legacy of the franchise. Even if it's not a good franchise, that's still a problem. It's still a problem when a movie just completely disregards any logic, any respect, any decency of the rest of the franchise. I don't know. All the movies just got progressively worse with telling the story. More and more layers were put on top of each other, and more removed or mixed around. So the entire franchise is a mess, but it still bothers me that a movie would do something like that. That it would just be mind-boggling bad in such a way. And that's where we end it. The next one, Doctor Death, should come out this year. Maybe it will already be out when this thing comes out. The thing is, I watched the trailer. It looks terrible. It looks potentially worse than Blade. So don't watch it. Spare yourself. I can already tell you that's a bad film. Don't watch it. And I think that's where I will end the review. So I guess just a quick recap at the end. Which ones are definitely worth watching? I will say Puppet Master, the Littlest Reich, the 13th installment of the series. That's the only one that's definitely worth watching. Of the original Puppet Master movies, the ones that are actually chronologically confused but still in order, I would say watch the first or the second Puppet Master movie just to get an idea of the story, and then watch the fourth one. Maybe watch the third one if you want to see puppets kill Nazis, but that's it. None of the other movies in this franchise are memorable in any good way. Some of them are memorable in a very bad way. You know, leaving scars on my mind I want to erase. Yeah, it overall 14 movies, soon 15. This has to be the worst movie franchise of this length I've seen. Sadly. I don't know why it has such a cult following. I don't know how there's so many movies. I don't know why they keep making new movies. They're bad. All the movies are bad. It's just an easy way to earn a buck, I guess, for these low budget companies. All the movies are low budget. I think even probably the Littlest Reich is low budget, but it's just enjoyable. So yes, that's it for me. I think here to end this. I don't know if you, of course, disagree with me. Feel free to tell me why I'm wrong in the comments. And if you want in-depth reviews of all these films, you can check out my Letterbox profile called The Robot Quits. There's also a link in the description. There you'll be able to see what I say about each movie, because honestly, I didn't write a script for this. This is all from memory. So I confuse maybe a few things or leave some things out. So you can see it in those. Actually, the Letterbox reviews are mostly spoiler free, so I won't go into details as I did here. I hope you enjoyed this short introduction and exit from the Puppet Master universe. I will definitely do more of these because I'm an idiot who doesn't value my own time watching shitty franchises like this. Bye.